Welcome back to the Social Club. One of the biggest stories doing the rounds of the month. In fact, it's been on and off, I guess, for a couple of weeks now. Jose Mourinho and his Chelsea side went into absolute meltdown at the weekend. We were here a week ago, well, I was anyway, discussing how Chelsea maybe turned the corner. They gave Villa a little bit of a game, and we thought, this is it. I mean, James, what do you think? Could Mourinho be the next manager for the job?
He could. I genuinely think he could, because it seems like stress is getting to him. Like the vine that a few national papers have picked up over the past weeks of knocking over a lad, like knocking over a Chelsea fan. Like, just
we've all wanted to do it. Let's be honest. We've all wanted to do it.
But Ian Hazard kicks ball boys, so
yeah, you just don't see such a media-friendly manager. Like, you just don't see a media-friendly manager like that be so agitated and so like weird toward his fans. It's definitely the sign of pressure on him. Definitely. And the thing that Jose Mourinho does well is he deflects pressure really well away from his players onto himself, onto whatever, referees, Eva Canero. And it seems like the pressure's actually hitting him now. Yeah. And it could be crunch time if he's not careful. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like how many Premier League teams have won the Premiership and had like 5 losses, 6 losses? Not many. I think it's like 5 or 4 the maximum amount of losses.
It's normally Liverpool finish second, and then their season is over by October. The season that follows up to that. It's a mad one though, isn't it, Pep? Because I think every week, and again we were talking on the previous part about like how Swansea have saved me fancy football. On the complete flip side, Chelsea have basically screwed me over every week, because I always think this week they're going to turn it around. Well, something's not right.
They made the massive mistake that a lot of Premier League teams do when they win the league, is they didn't strengthen. And I would like to congratulate my own club for destroying Chelsea, because the John Stones thing was a big part of it. They'd set their sights on him, gone for him, and when someone actually said no, it just almost like the walls came tumbling down. What?
With Chelsea?
Yeah, exactly.
So they went out and bought what's his name, Miguel Hector from Reading instead.
There you go. But Mourinho's done this before in the past, where he's made a big deal of not being able to sign players, and he had that big rant a few years ago, some like eggs and the class of eggs and all this kind of thing. And the thing about it is, he's had like an aging squad, and he hasn't replaced. Terry for me is done. Kale's actually not that good.
No,
he's not that good. No. Matic hasn't been up to it this season, and Costa's too busy fighting. Now they need another striker. They need another centre midfielder, and they need another centre back. The goalkeeper situation compounded things as well. Obviously, getting Milchek and the other keeper being out injured. And the other thing about it is the whole thing doesn't really suit anyone, because Mourinho only tends to last 2 seasons anywhere he goes anyway. That seems to be what suits him. And Chelsea tend to go through a manager every 2 years. So this doesn't seem to suit them. Yeah. And everyone used to say, oh, why did he sack managers like a year after they've won them a league? And this is the reason. It's to keep standards up there. It's to keep people on their toes. Yeah. And that's Abramovich. Listen, he probably wipes his nose with more money than I'm ever going to see in my lifetime. You know what I mean? He's a hard-nosed businessman. He knows what it takes. And I think he's got a little bit too comfy with Jose Mourinho. Yeah. Whereas what he should have been doing is thinking, who's the next big man? Who's the next one to go and get?
But still, we say never go back, and there's plenty of examples of it. And I mean, obviously, Chelsea, as much as it galls me, are right up there at the top end of football. Like, but we saw it with Dalglish when he came back, and it differed. He had years out of the game, and he wasn't quite up to speed and what have you. But there's always that pressure. It's like getting back with an ex, isn't it? It's familiar, it's comfortable. You can remember the good times, but slowly and surely you reach a point where you start to think, this is why you did that. But you do, and that's what's happening with them, because Mourinho's got it, and he'll be uncomfortable, and he will be thinking at this point, this feels very familiar to a few years ago.
It's his thing. He's got this supposed 3-year cycle, isn't it, where he has 2 good years. Well, his first year at Chelsea was a bit more transitional this time, and then he has a bit of a meltdown. Like the first stint at Chelsea, 3 years, played Rosenborg in the Champions League, had a meltdown, left, and then Real Madrid, he sort of had a bit, although he won some trophies in the end. He was like 15 points behind Barca, might be being Atletico that year, actually.
I think the other thing that doesn't help is he's not the biggest story in town anymore either. There's so many different...
So much
well, Yeah. Where did Klopp go for his tea tonight? He stayed at home. What did he have? Honestly, that's what it's...
I love the Klopp thing. I love the fact that he come out in his first press
Oh,
conference.
it always turns up to you, doesn't it? Always.
There's somebody at the door. Sorry, I love the fact that he come out and said basically I've had to stop posing for pictures because everyone thinks I'm on the lash every night. It's great. Like.
But Mourinho's not the biggest story in town anymore. I think the journalists have got a little bit bored of him. I think actually some of them feel like the whole thing with the physio was just actually a step too far. It just got beyond the joke. That I mean that was a joke. You know, throwing a physio literally under the bus is just
grim.
It is a bit grim, and people just got actually. You used to be funny, used to be great at giving us little one-liners, but now you're a little bit cruel and a little bit hard, and I don't think people like that side of it.
And look, let's be fair. I know it's not the most like, you know, I guess like modern comment, but you know. You position yourself against a beautiful woman who's you've slighted and maligned. He was never going to win that. Like, you know what I mean? He was always going to look like a horrible, bitter football man, wasn't he? He was standing in the way of football and progress. Like the little woman who doesn't understand the game, she doesn't understand it, blah, blah, blah. He was on a hand to nothing with that, and he was always going to be it. And sometimes, we've said this a few times on these shows, that sometimes it's just the first crack that shows. And as I was saying there, you know, he's very good at deflecting attention, but now that the attention's on him, who does he throw it to? It's not working anymore, because literally he's thrown it to him and nah, have it back. Have it back.
One thing Jose Mourinho's got a big reputation of is like working players to the bone. Like we see Juan Mata, who's a great player. He was sold immediately. Wasn't part of the plans. He doesn't fit into Mourinho's style of play.
Yeah.
Because what Mourinho does is he gets his wingers, he gets his players running for him, running really, really hard. And what I think that does is I think that kills players in some senses. Joe Cole's never been as good as he was at Chelsea, for example.
Centre Coventry.
We're sent to Coventry now.
Sorry,
he can't even get a game at Villa, which says something, to be fair.
Yeah.
I just think the likes of Eden Hazard, Cesc Fabregas, they've been going through such like wonderful like youth.
Matic.
Matic. They've gone through such great youth like academies and stuff. And now I feel like the seeing now is like, right, we can't keep doing this.
Sorry. I'd love to say there was a special guest turning up with that going on.
Roddle. It's just for me. He's become this very bitter man, and the talk that he's fallen out with people like John Terry, who were supposed to be his lieutenants,
untouchables.
He's the worst lieutenant since Lieutenant Dan.
Post now.
Yeah, with new legs. It's just I just don't think he's the man he used to be. And I know that point comes to all of us.
Yeah,
we're not the man we used to be. But for me,
shadow of our former self.
But Mourinho's just, I don't know. I'd bin him.
Yeah, I don't think, like it's just said about the untouchables, you had people like John Terry, Frank Lampard, Drogba, they all just seem to have this winning mentality, and even Terry, like Ped's just said, he's sort of on his last legs definitely, and I just get the impression like the people like Oscar and Hazard and they just don't have that same sort of...
The Premier League has that incredible ability, because I feel like in the midst of this at Liverpool, is that when things are going well, you think your players are amazing, and you think they're right up there with the best in the world. But I was looking at Chelsea the weekend going, are these players that good?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but it's crazy, isn't it? Because Eden Hazard is an astonishingly good footballer. He's incredible.
Not performing.
Exactly, and then but then you start to look around that team, and you're thinking, what is Oscar doing? What is Willian doing? What are the fullbacks?
You could look at the two benches on Saturday, and you could argue that West Ham probably had a better bench than Chelsea. When you looked at the talent West Ham had, you'd back some of those players to come off the bench and do something rather than Chelsea. I can't remember exactly.
He also got the pre-season absolutely wrong by coming back late, and he said he wanted them to peak later this year. But I think in the Premier League you have to peak on day one. And you have to keep it up.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
But particularly at Chelsea, because they're so... look, they've had plenty of managers who started brightly and fizzled out. You know, they had a couple of seasons of that. Big Phil did the same, didn't they? They started amazingly. AVB. But the problem is that when you at Chelsea, I don't think you can budget for the end of the season because they're a club that does sack managers. The pressure's on you so soon that you need to at least You don't need to be sensational from day one, but you need to win football matches.
I also
because
think
you could be out on your ear.
I also think there's a commercial pressure at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Or this commercial pressure to break even. Even though FFP doesn't really exist anymore, it doesn't. But there's almost this thing that Chelsea have to be making money to prove to people that they're not just a club owned by a rich man.
Yeah.
And I think they've got so many different sponsors and so many different commitments, and they went straight into an American tour in the summer with no pre-season and got straight, and they were getting beat by like New York Red Bull reserves, and it was it was stupid. It was just like. And to go into that environment straight away, and they were doing a lot of outside commitments for the likes of Adidas and people like that, because they're one of the big names now. It feels like he hasn't got control that side of things, and he feels like he's a manager that if he hasn't got control, then he's going to just throw his toys out the pram and start getting very arsy.
Which is
with
quite
people.
sort of the opposite to what Van Gaal's done this season, where he said, we're not in this pre-season rubbish again. I'm taking control. We're not going to go all around the world, and you look at the difference with Manchester United.
Look, Chelsea's plan could ultimately, pay dividends. The players might be the fittest things you've ever seen in your life in May, when they are, still 10 points outside the top 4 or whatever. I think they'll be up there ultimately,
I think
with a different manager or whatever. But this is the point, isn't it? That sometimes it's like, look, the problem Brendan Rodgers faced at the start of this summer is that when the pressure builds and the pressure builds fast. Doesn't matter that it might ultimately work out in 6, 7, 8 months' time. Particularly at Chelsea, Perilous Boys fell victim to it. Di Matteo fell victim to it as well. There's going to be another guy who comes in and probably reaps all the rewards for the seeds you've sown in pre-season. So there you go. Let us know your thoughts then in the comments below. Do you think Mourinho will be the next to go, or has he got enough about him to turn it round? I mean, look, history suggests probably yes, because he is a good manager. But again, that's what comment sections beneath videos on YouTube are for. Is for wild, unfounded opinions. So go nuts. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the Ball Street YouTube channel. Check back for the rest of the show. We're going to be discussing Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp and patience, Jamie Vardy's magnificence, more on Everton, Arsenal, and our highlights of the weekend.